Okay, everybody, we're going to start. Thanks everybody for coming to this month's ETRO U. Today, Alyson is going to present on effective meeting management. Alyson.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. So today's ETRO U is going to be on effective meeting management. Okay, let's dive right in. So I'm sure a lot of people have seen these memes, probably laughed at them after a long day at work. I myself can resonate quite a bit with all of these memes in this slide. Like literally every single one I can relate to, and I'm sure you can too. So that's the purpose of today's meeting. How can we make our meetings so that people aren't going home and laughing at these memes and resonating with stuff like this? Because bad meetings take a while to recover from, and we have a lot of them. We go to bad meetings, sometimes we inadvertently put on bad meetings, and it takes time to recover. And then usually you have to go to another one right after, or you're done for the day and you go home exhausted. So let's try to give everyone some tips today on how we can fix that and how we can run some really effective meetings in our own departments. So hopefully by the end of today's session, we'll be able to plan your meetings with clarity, invite the right people, invite with intent, facilitate with focus, decide, make the decisions and be able to align the room, follow through and protect everyone's time. So let's get into it. So one rule that I like to follow, and this is a real rule, you can read about it yourself online if you want, but everyone should be spending 40% of your time preparing, 40% of your time as your follow through, and only 20% of your time for the meeting itself. So many people spend so much time talking about minutes and how do we capture the right items, but so much of it goes into the preparation and the follow through and the action items that come afterwards. So some of that is what we're going to be talking about today. So let's get into it in terms of the preparation process. So this is your 40% preparation. Before you even decide to have a meeting, there's some key rules that everyone should be following. And this is your go, no go rule. Do I even have this meeting? So for one, if you're purely just sharing information, like nobody else is going to be involved, it's really just you delivering an update. There's no collaboration. You're not requiring anyone else's input. This, in my opinion, you can look at Mr. Michael Scott up here, should be an email. No need for a meeting for that instance. Number two, if you need a decision to be made and any one of your key decision makers are not there, cancel it, reschedule, postpone until everyone 100% can be there. Because you're going to end up with a decision that's likely going to get backtracked if everyone isn't on the same page. So that's your go, no go rule. So continuing on, still in the 40% preparation phase, before doing this ETRO U last week, I went around and I kind of canvassed the office and I was asking people, what's your number one takeaway? Like for you, what would make a great meeting? And almost unanimously, everybody said having a clear objective and a defined purpose. Like going into the meeting, knowing what you want your outcome to be or what the purpose of the meeting is key. You need to have that on lock or else your meeting is going to be completely useless if you ask me. So have a clear outcome and establish that ahead of time. And that outcome or that purpose should also be actionable and results oriented. And you might be going into that meeting trying to decide, okay, is it a meeting where we're going to be making a decision? Is it a meeting where it's going to be a collaboration session? It's a working session. Knowing what that is ahead of time will help you inform how to plan for the meeting and who to invite as well. Second to that, having a very clear agenda. And this includes also deciding ahead of time who's your leader, who's going to be leading that meeting. It can't be two people, it has to be one person that's going to be leading and commanding the room. And that needs to be decided ahead of time. Ideally, the person leading the meeting is not also taking minutes, but in our industry and the nature of our business, that's not always the case, which is great, which is that AI is now available for us and Gemini can help us capture minutes if that is the situation that we're in. Each agenda item should also have one clear owner. So one person that's in charge of that item and that you're going to be asking the questions to. And if you can, while you're writing out your agenda, try to outline a time allocation that you plan to spend on that item. Because oftentimes you'll have an item that just completely overruns your meeting when you really only wanted to spend 5 minutes on it. So try to outline that ahead of time, even if it's just for yourself, some little notes that you can go into the meeting with, as well as pre-read material. This provides context for the meeting. So if you're going through something in the meeting that really requires, for you to share your schedule ahead of time, or for you to share an RFI with the team ahead of time, or for you to share a report, some pros and cons for different solutions that you're proposing, share that with the team at least 24 hours so that they can come to the meeting prepared and have an opinion already created when they get to the meeting. So this is just an example of going back to defining the purpose. This is just an example that I prepared of something you could send out as an email. And then also duplicate in your meeting invite. So clearly define your objective, what the context of the meeting is, and include a link for any pre-read material. Duplicate that same information into the body of your meeting invite. This provides a really clear information for the people attending the meeting and why they're going to be there. So still in the preparation phase, this is still a lengthy process, as you can see. It's really important to decide who belongs at this meeting. And for us in the room that are part of project teams, it's really, really important that you understand and take the time to understand your organizational chart and understand who the key decision makers are that are going to be attending the room. So for example, I'm just going to give an example. At Oak Ridge, for example, there was a lot of stakeholders, and that's just the nature of the project. It was a joint venture. We had a lot of stakeholders that were engaged in pre-con, and then they were also engaged during the course of construction. But at the start, we were inviting everybody to all of the meetings. You know how hard that is to schedule with like 20 VPs to try to get everybody in the same room at the same time. And not to mention you'd leave the room and not have any decisions made. But that was because at the time, even the ownership didn't really know who their key stakeholders were, who the key decision makers were for each item. And then slowly over time, we were able to figure out like, okay, this is the key decision maker for finance. This is the key decision maker for design. This is the key decision maker for coordination on site. And once we figure that out, the flow of the meetings and the flow of the project just improved greatly. So take the time to learn your organizational chart so you know who to invite to your meetings. Keep it lean. Try to keep your meetings the smallest possible group that you can have to make a decision. So ideally, there's no more than one person per department. They can go back and report to their team and provide the information that was shared at the meeting, but no need for more than one representative to be there. Amazon's rule, which I quite like, so I included it, is if you can't feed the whole group with 2 pizzas, the meeting's too big. So I think that's a great rule of thumb to think about when you're inviting people to the meeting. And utilize your calendar invite tool as exactly what it is. Use it as a tool. There's required versus optional. So you can invite people as an FYI and put them as optional. That way they know that they're not necessarily required there, but they can attend if they have the time. And the reason we do this, the reason why it's so important to decide who's important to be at the meeting is our time equals money. Like our time is valuable. Our consultant's time is valuable. Our boss's time is valuable. So don't invite people to meetings that they really didn't need to be there at. And that can also go hand in hand with reorganizing your meeting. So if you know that somebody needs to head out and they only have 20 minutes, it's okay to reorganize your meeting and do their portion first, and then they can head out. So it really just goes into respecting people's time and making sure the right people are in the room. So now we're into the meeting portion. So this is our 20% meeting. So what I like to say is the leader of the meeting should be able to command the room and align the group. So you are the leader of the meeting now. So start on time, even if people are missing, just say, you know what, we're we're going to wait, we're going to give everyone a few minutes, but at least they know that you're there, you're ready, and you give the impression that you're punctual, you're ready to go. Open with the objective. So we've already been through that. We've sent it out to everybody ahead of time, and reiterate it when you get to the meeting. That's your opening statement. This is why we're here for this meeting today, and this is what we hope to get out of it. Keep the discussions on track. So you as the leader, that's your role as well, to kind of guide the room. And it can be really challenging because there can be voices in the room that are just quite loud or overpowering, or maybe not even that, maybe just the discussion gets completely derailed, and it is challenging to bring the meeting back on track. And I preface this by saying that running meetings and guiding the discussion itself is a skill. It's not something that everyone's just naturally good at. And so it is something that takes practice. And a lot of people in this company have been doing it for years, so they're great people to learn from. But everybody started somewhere, and it's really hard to learn these skills if you're not practicing. So I would urge everybody to try to take on some meetings this year to try to practice these skills in guiding discussions and leading meetings. And so something that you can say, for example, if the conversation does start to go off track a little bit, you can always say, hey guys, great idea. Thank you so much for bringing it up. Why don't we park it for now in the essence of time so that we can keep things moving, but let's schedule an offline meeting or an offline chat to continue the discussion. Something along those lines, so that you're making note of the point that they're bringing up, but you're allowing yourself to bring the conversation back to the agenda items that you had at hand. Super important to try to balance the room. Oftentimes you'll get the same people that are wanting to participate and are providing their input. Try, if you can, to call on people without being too aggressive, if you will, but try to call on people, some of those quieter voices that you know have great input, and they just maybe are too shy to bring it up in that setting, but make them feel comfortable and make them know that their voices are also very important for the group. And managing time. So that's why it goes back to when you originally created your agenda, to try to allocate those amounts of times that you plan to spend on each item. That way, when you're managing the time throughout the meeting, you can clearly be like, okay, we're coming up on 5 minutes on this item. Let's try to wrap this up. Let's try to close the loop. And if you're noticing the discussion is going way over, that might be something that you need to regroup with those same people, maybe a much smaller group in a different setting, to continue that conversation. And so something that I like to do as we're coming up at the end of a meeting, let's say your meeting is scheduled from 2 to 3, at 2:50, bring up to the group, hey, we're 10 minutes out. The meeting's going to be, it's looking like we might go over by a few minutes here. Is everyone okay to stick around? If not, that's all good. You can head out. So at least you're aware of the time. You're letting the group know that you're aware of the time, and that, yeah, you're just managing it throughout the course of the meeting. So still in the meeting process, so super important to capture any decisions that are made. So above all else, meeting minutes, although important to capture what is going on in the meeting, it's not important to write a novel or to really dictate exactly what is being said verbatim by everybody in the room. Really, the only thing that matters is capturing the decision that was made in writing, and also capturing that action item out of that. The decision and/or if there's an action item. And the action item should really only be assigned to one person with a due date to make it completely unambiguous. Do not assign it to a group that I'm sure everybody in the room has heard, oh, we'll follow up. Okay, who's we? Who's we? Who's we? It never gets followed up when there's a we. So try to make sure that it's always assigned to one person, so that, for example, when you're following up after the meeting, you can tag them so they're accountable for that action item. And closing the loop. So before you end your meeting, it's important to do a bit of a wrap up. So at the start of the meeting, we outlined our objective. At the end of the meeting, it's very important to do a little wrap up at the end. So outline what everybody's action items are. So Lucy, you're going to be submitting your shop drawing by next Friday, for example. And so that way they know that you are accountable for that action item. So Lucy, I expect to see that next Friday. And I kind of missed one item, but just one thing that I learned very early on in my career, and Stuart and I were talking about it, that this is a great way to capture decisions that were being made. So just going back to item number 1 there for a sec, is when you hear in a meeting as the leader, when you hear a decision being made, try to paraphrase it and repeat it back so that you're making sure that you are 100% clear of what was said. You can repeat it back in your own words. That will help you remember what that decision was, and just make sure that the room is 100% clear on what that action item is. That's helped me a lot throughout the course of my career, even just to make sure that I fully understand what it was that was going on in that conversation. So now we're into the follow through. So obviously right after the meeting, send the minutes. You would think that this would be obvious. However, we do often see that, let's say you're going for your OAC, you receive the meeting minutes the day before from the last OAC. So those meeting minutes should be containing your action items. So if you're sending them out the day before your next meeting, you're already late. You're already late for your preparation. You're already late for your follow-ups. It's just not good enough. So meeting, 24 hours, you send out your minutes. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that is also part of all of our KPIs in terms of timeliness of turnaround for some of our action items. So yeah, 24 hours, make sure they're being sent out to all attendees that came to the meeting, but also those who were maybe just on, who are just on distribution. So the next step to that, this is where most people stop. Sent out the meeting minutes, great. Then you probably go to the next meeting. Hey, Lucy, did you send me your shop drawing last week? No? Okay, great. Let's follow up next week. You know, so that's how your meeting minutes drag. That's how you get action items that never get off your agenda. So this is where we can shine. So everybody better be listening right now. So you send the meeting minutes, you have the action items. The next step is key. So maybe you, and it can kind of be however you want it to be. Like, it's not one set way. I'm just saying, like, this needs to happen one way or the other. So you send the meeting minutes out, probably through Procore. Maybe you do a follow-up the next day via email, and you, for each action item, like, let's say you have an item assigned to your architect, you have an item assigned to your mechanical engineer. Maybe you send them each an individual email following up on that item the day after. And then you create a tracking sheet for yourself so that you can note every item that you're tracking and have with the due dates. And so you can have a clear sheet and work off of that so that it's not going to die in your meeting minutes. Because anything that isn't visible won't be tracked. So if it's living in your meeting minutes and you didn't transfer it elsewhere, it's not going to get tracked. It's tried and true. I think everyone can agree with that. So yeah, suggestion would be to put it in some sort of Google Sheet, do a follow-up individually, track the items, and then do another follow-up before the next meeting. Don't allow yourself to get into the next meeting and then do the follow-up. Because at that time, you're probably, again, going to get a response, such as Lucy just told us that she did not send us the shop drawings. And so you need to avoid that ahead of time. So whether it's a day or two before the meeting, do another follow-up. And I saw this consistently, obviously it happens all the time, but I've seen it consistently for us specifically at Oak Ridge, was actually during our commissioning meeting, because people would get so busy and the commissioning seemed to just fall to the wayside that we would have these action items that would just never get off our agenda. And so lessons learned, we need to be practicing even in those types of meetings, the same practices that we're doing in all of our other types of meetings. And these types of follow-ups will really allow yourself to gain momentum and be able to close the loop on these items and be able to move forward with your projects. And so just some closing thoughts, and separate from our meetings, but just in the same breath. It's really important to do an audit of your recurring meetings, whether that's monthly, quarterly, however often you want to do it, because oftentimes the calendar invite will outlive its value and its purpose. And so it's super important to be auditing that and canceling it if you don't need it anymore. For example, we had an OAC obviously scheduled bi-weekly. That seems to be the typical cadence for projects. And near the end of the project, probably 4 months out, we had to look at it and we're like, you know what? We're in full execution mode right now. We really don't need anything from the consultants. We have a direct line of communication with them. We don't need we don't need to talk about anything every 2 weeks. And so because of that, we repurposed that bi-weekly OAC and we use it as a deficiency walkthrough every 2 weeks because we already had that time allotted in the calendar, but we just repurposed it. So that's something else you can do too, is just repurpose that same time frame. And last item here is, if you can, try to allow yourself some meeting-free blocks. So kind of opposite to what we were talking about, but allow yourself some time to do some deep work. So last year, I made it a goal for myself, as much as humanly possible, to avoid meetings on Mondays and Fridays. I know it sounds crazy, but it worked for me. And every Friday, it allowed myself to properly plan for the following week. And come Monday, I'd be ready and prepared, have the whole day to plan also for the coming week, do any updates I had to, and it worked great for me. So I highly recommend this. It doesn't need to be a full day. It could just be an afternoon, but highly recommend, because meetings can be quite exhausting. And final thoughts here. Make your meetings purposeful. But since COVID, like, meetings have just been the natural, like, oh, let's just jump on a call. Like, it doesn't always need to be that way. So make your meetings purposeful, not automatic. And if they're not providing value anymore, just cancel it and avoid them. Yeah, avoid them if they don't provide any value. And yeah, thank you so much.